Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to use images as an unordered list bullet. So I was listening to the Syntax podcast the other day, and they made reference to feathericons.com, so checking them out. You can adjust size pretty easy, adjust the stroke width or the border, the outline, and change the color pretty easily. So let's see, I'm going to grab a check square, and I want to use this as the bullet for a unordered list or a bulleted list. So I'm going to click on this particular item. I'm going to save it into my images folder, check-square. That's a great file name. Save it. Now I already have a blank page started off, but I need to put in the content. So let's jump over to the editor. And right after the header, before the footer, I'm going to go ahead and create an unordered list. I'm going to give it a class though, because I wouldn't necessarily want this style to be true for all unordered lists on my website or my web page. All right, so I've given that a class, and let's go ahead and we'll do a little list item in there. And I'm going to get some lorem ipsum text, but I don't need that much, so we'll just delete a big chunk of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and experience what this list is going to look like by default. And by the way, it's not going to look very pretty on my page because of the tiny font. I've got some default font sizes on there, and I've got a reset rule, so you can't really see much going on over there. So let's put in at least a little bit of styling so we can see what we have originally. And this is my dot checklist. And I'm going to start off just with a big margin. 200 pixels on the top, 10 pixels on the right, 20 pixels on the bottom, and let's do like 100 pixels on the left. There we go, margin top, right, bottom, left, top, clockwise, going around. Now we'll just start to see things on there. Now I think I've also got, on my reset rule, list style type none, which takes away the default bullets for a list. So let's go ahead and adjust this a bit. Font size, 3M, make it nice and big. There we go, so now we can really see that list. And let's jump down and put in, actually we'll do it right up here. So obviously we can do things like list style type, and we can put in something like square for bullets. List style type square, we've got those square bullets, or you can do disc or circle. We could also do list style image, and if we do list style image, we can put in something like URL images slash, there's my image, my little SVG image. And now we're going to have that checkbox. That's pretty easy to work with right there. Now, instead of doing list style image, I'm going to change this out to list style, which is kind of like a shorthand property. And by the way, this would still work just as it is. We're still going to have our checklist there. But if we do list style, we could indicate that we want square outside and then the image. Now, you're not going to notice a big difference here, or any difference for that matter. But basically, we have our image being used as the bullet. Now, if this image is broken for some reason, then the square is going to be the displayed bullet. And for the position, outside or inside, you would only really appreciate that if a list item had multiple lines of text. Is the text going to wrap underneath the bullet? That would be position inside. Or is it going to be nice and flush with the bullet beyond that? That would be position outside. I'm going to leave it just the way it is, kind of like that. However, let's fix my typo. And now I'm going to put a little space in between these list items. Dot checklist space list item. Margin bottom, let's do something kind of big, 24 pixels. And we'll separate these out. Now you notice that my checklist, my little check bullet, is kind of high. I don't know if I really like its positioning, but it's tough to position just a bullet. So let me show you a slight deviation we can make with this. Although I have trouble positioning a bullet in relation to the list item text, what we can do is this. What if I had a background image on the list item? URL images slash, and I'm going to grab my check square SVG. Now that's going to look pretty funky there because that background image is repeating, but then I can do background repeat, no repeat, and now we're going to see that text right over there. Or that bullet right there. let's do this. I'm going to break my list style image just by mistyping it. And instead of square for my bullet, I'm going to choose none for my bullet. Keeping that position at outside is perfectly fine. And now the only checklist item we can see is the background image. But obviously the text is on top of that. So we can try things like, well, what if my list item also had a big padding left of, let's say, 48 pixels. That's going to push that text away. And it's really subtle, but my bullet here is actually a little bit more in line with the height of the text, it being a background image. If I needed to adjust it even more, remember, it's a background image, well, then I can do something like background position, 2 values here. The first number is the horizontal positioning of that background image, so I'm going to do 0. I don't want to position it horizontally. The next number is going to be the vertical positioning. If I did something really big and dramatic, like 10 pixels, that's going to push that background image downward 10 pixels. So when I look at this, I can see that check mark is way down there. If I just want to adjust it a little bit, maybe just like 2 pixels, I can arrange it so that I'm satisfied with it. Even 2 pixels might be a little bit much, maybe 1 pixel would have been fine. I just wanted you to see how, well, yeah, we can use a list style image, but you can also use a background image on the list item to give a faux bullet. And it's still an unordered list. It's still going to be read that way by oral browsers, Braille browsers, and things. Now, what if one of our list items was extra long? Let me throw in a bunch of extra text for one of these list items. Let's just make sure it still looks good. And let's go to my checklist up here, and I'm going to set its width to be something like 500 pixels. So that's going to force some of these bullets to wrap, and you can see we're still in a pretty good shape, and that, okay, everything looks nice and flush, and the bullet is where I want it to be. And yeah, so there you go. List style image, or you can use a background image in order to pretend to be a bullet. Thanks for hanging out with me.